good to be here. So good to see everyone. We're thankful to God for your presence. We're thankful to God to be here. And we're thankful to God that we can worship God on the first day of the week with His people. We're always encouraged by our prayers, by our songs, and most of all by the fellowship that we have when we come together to worship God in spirit and in truth on the first day of the week. If you're here for the first time here in Easthaven, y'all are honored and esteemed guests. And we appreciate so very much you being here with us. And we don't take you being here with us today lightly. We don't take it for granted. And we would ask for you to stick around after worship is over with so we can get a chance to know you. Maybe fill out a visitor's card so we can get a chance to know you a little bit better. One of the things that happens when we look at Scripture, the Bible instructs us about the horrible nature of sin. If you will, look at Hebrews chapter 3. Hebrews chapter 3. Hebrews chapter 3. Hebrews 3 and verse number 12. The Hebrew writer says, "Take heed, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God." But then in verse number 13, "But exhort one another daily, while it is called today, lest you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin." The Hebrew writer says we need to pay attention. We need to make sure our minds are right, our focus is right, our focus is straight, because we can be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. Sin is very deceptive. I know some of our sisters here can relate to this. You know, you can go to some of these home furnishing stores, and they have these centerpieces that you can put on your table, and it's fruit, and the fruit look real. My mother has a basket on her table, and every time we go home, my daughter, they always reach for an orange. The orange just as fake as all get out. That orange got so many bite marks on it, because everybody that come over there takes a bite out of that orange. Plastic fruit, but it look real. It deceives. If you go to New Orleans, if you go to Andrews Square or Jackson Square in New Orleans, they have people down there that look like statues. They're painted silver and gold, and you think that's a real statue. After about 5 to 10 minutes when they get tired and they start moving. But you can be deceived. That's how sin is. Sin will deceive you. Sin will have you think you're doing what's right all the time you're doing what's wrong. And so the Hebrew writer says, don't be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. So the Bible instructs us about sin, but it also warns us about the consequences of sin. In our text in Romans 6 and verse number 23, Paul says, "For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord." Let me help us appreciate what this word wage means. Brother Hammond, if you will, look at Luke chapter 3. Luke chapter 3, the word wage there means a soldier's pay. We all know a little something about a pay, don't we? A payday, a paycheck. As a matter of fact, y'all remember that song that came out late 80s, early 90s by a man by the name of Johnny Kemp? Friday night. Just got paid. Y'all know that song? Well, the word wage there is the same idea. In other words, when you get through living your life, you're going to receive a pay for everything that you've done. What does he say there in Luke chapter 3 and verse number 12? Luke 3 and verse number 12, concerning the baptism of John the Baptist.
Then came also public to be baptized.
The publicans.
And said unto him, Master, what shall we do? And he said unto them, exactly no more than that which is appointed you.
So the publicans came to John the Baptist and they said, "Sir, what should we do? We want to be saved and we want to go to heaven." But they tax collectors, they're publicans, they work for the Roman government. So John told them, don't take no more from people than what is appointed unto you. Don't be charged all this high interest and usury fees.
All right.
So John said, if you want to be saved, he said, you can't charge people more than what's appropriate. What does he say next?
And the soldier likewise.
The soldiers came to him. What does he say?
The man of him saying, and what shall we do?
And
he said unto them, do violence to no man.
Don't do violence.
Neither accuse any falsely.
Don't lie on people. Don't slander people.
And be content with your wages.
Be content with your wages. In other words, don't be greedy. That's the same word in Romans 6:23. It is a soldier's pay. So every time you get paid, I want you to think about this. Every time that money hit, when you get your direct deposit, just think about this eternity. When you go and pick your paycheck up, that's how it's going to be in the judgment. You are going to get paid for what you have done. Paul would also say, for we shall receive what we've done in this body, whether good or bad, 2 Corinthians 5:10.
That's it.
So what we need to understand, sin is serious. Paul is saying sin has some wages, some dividends that it pays. To give you a darker picture of sin, look at 1 Timothy chapter 5. 1 Timothy chapter 5. And notice what he says. 1 Timothy 5 and verse number 24. Paul says, some men's sins are open, going beforehand in judgment. When you think about that phrase, what I want you to consider is, just imagine going to the airport. You know, before you touch down, your luggage is already downstairs. Paul says some men's sins don't go before them to judgment. So you know what that tells me? Don't have none of your family members die here robbing folk, killing people. And then when we get ready to have the funeral, you want everybody to say all nice and glorious things when you know that person died in sin. They had a man yesterday got killed trying to do a kick door. How you think that funeral was going to be? We can't do it. Some men's sins are open. Sometimes you go to Freeman, you know the person. Never went to church, never believed in Jesus, never did anything religious or spiritual, never did anything, and yet there's still people who put him in heaven. Paul says some men's sins are open. You know as well as I know, some people know they ain't going to heaven. All the talking in the world, all the preaching in the world, all the dressing up in the world, the best suits, the best dresses, not going to put them in heaven. Some men's sins are open beforehand, going before judgment, but notice the last phrase. But some men's sins, they follow after. There are some situations where people don't know about some stuff. Some secret things. Some things that are done in private, in dark. And so guess what? Since we don't know about those things, Paul said they still catch up with you. They'll catch up with you. Some men's sins that go before them and some men's follow after. Sin is serious. I want you to look at this illustration on the board. You got man and God. But in between,
yes, sir,
there's a barrier. There is a separation. There is a segregation, if you will, between man and God. And how will man rectify that chasm? How is man going to get to the other side? How is man going to get to God? Well, we need to consider sin is always going to stand in his way. Right. Sin is never going to be his friend. Sin is never going to help him be on the side of right and be with God. Sin is serious. That's what we're talking about this morning. When you think about health, sin is just as serious as a heart attack. You know, you go up and down the highways, they got all these signs about health, what to do if somebody's having a stroke, what to do if somebody's having a heart attack, what to do if somebody's hemorrhaging. But guess what? Sin is just as serious, and if not more. Because sin will go with us in eternity. Sin is serious business. But what I want us to consider, when you look at the scriptures, there are some words that help us to appreciate what sin is, what sin look like, so we'll know what they look like. And so there are some words in both the Old Testament and the New Testament that help us appreciate what sin is. You got transgression, you got iniquity, you got missing the mark, you got transgression again, just a slightly different variation of it, and then you also got lawlessness. The Bible shows us how severe sin is. First of all, let's look at transgression. What is interesting, when we look at this word transgression, the Hebrew word pisha or pesha is one of the most common words for sin, translated transgression. Well, what does transgression mean? Because we hear God says people transgressed or they committed transgression, but what does it mean? If you will, I want everybody to turn to 1 Samuel. You all know the account. 1 Samuel 15. We're going to look at verses 1 through 11, but let's focus on verses 1 through 3 first of all. 1 Samuel 15, we're talking about transgression. You all remember Saul. 1 Samuel 15, 1 through 3, God gave Saul some very specific instructions. They were specific, but they were also simple. 1 Samuel 15, 1, how does that read?
Samuel also said unto Saul, the Lord sent me to appoint thee to be king over his people. over Israel.
Now notice. Now we're not gonna rush over this next phrase because it's gonna be big later on. It's very simple. It's a word that sometimes people have problem with. Notice what he says.
Now therefore, hearken thou unto the voice of the word of the Lord.
It's one word in that whole sentence that I want us to pay attention to. Hearken.
Hearken.
It means to listen with attention. It means to listen with the thought of doing what is told. Last year there was a video, a viral video that went around the internet. There's a little boy talking to his nanny. And the boy kept saying, Linda, 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 listen, Linda, 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 listen, Linda, Linda. And so the point is, God is telling Saul, Saul, listen, listen, Saul, listen up, Saul. And notice now, God says, hearken, hearken to the voice of the words of the Lord. He's not listening to Samuel, he's listening to God. And man would do well, he would fare well to hearken to God. If you don't listen to anybody else, you better make sure you listen to God.
Amen.
Sometimes young people get into a whole lot of trouble because they fail to listen. Amen. Sometimes we have to get on young people and say, were you listening? Are you paying attention? And so it's just like, you know, when you watch Russ Hour or Chris Tucker told Jackie Chan, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? This is what God is telling Saul. Saul, you need to understand what I'm about to tell you. Let's read on. Y'all remember that word hearken? It's going to come back up. What does it say?
Thus said the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek. So
notice now, these are the commands. The commands are simple. The commands are doable. The commands are practical. God says all you got to do, Saul, is go and smite Amalek and do what?
Destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both men and women, infants and suckling, oxen and sheep, camels and asses.
Very simple. All Saul got to do is just go down to Amalek and just destroy everything. Just wipe everything out the way. That's all he got to do. He don't have to save any hostages. He don't have to do anything but just go and just tear the place up. All he got to do, just go and demolish the place. Very simple. You know the thing about God? God's commands are always simple. John says in 1 John, he said, you know what? The commandments of the Lord are not grievous. They're not hard. They're not burdensome. And so all Saul has to do is to go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy everything that he has. Very simple, isn't it? Now let's keep reading.
And Saul gathered the people together and numbered them in Hebron, 200,000 footmen and 10,000 men of Judah.
So he started off right. He going against his army, going against his people, and notice what he does.
And Saul came to a city of Amalek.
He went to the right place. He starts off right. He goes to the right destination. What else does it say?
And lay wait in the valley.
He got the right mindset. He lay in wait. What else does it say?
And Saul said unto the Kenites, go, depart, get out, get you down from among the Amalek.
Notice now, God didn't find fault because he let them leave. It's almost as if God said, okay, I'll let y'all leave. But the Amalekites, you got to go ahead and utterly destroy them. What does he say?
Lest I destroy you with them, for ye showed kindness to all the children of Israel when they came up out of Egypt. So the Kenites departed from among the Amalekites. And Saul smote the Amalekites from Havana until thou comest to Shon, that is over against Egypt.
So it seemed like Saul is on the move to do what's right. He smites the Amalekites from Havilah all the way to Shur, even as far as Egypt. But notice what he does next of all.
And he took Agag, the king of Amalek, alive.
That wasn't part of the plan.
Amen.
Verse number 3 does not say that. That's not a caveat. That's not part of the equation. What else does he say?
And utterly destroy all the people with the edge of the sword.
Now my question is, if you can utterly destroy all the people, why couldn't you kill Agag?
Amen.
He had enough energy to kill everybody else. What else does it say?
And Saul and the people spared Agag.
That's not part of the plan.
And
What else
the
does it
best,
say?
and the best of the sheep, and of the oxen, and of the fatted, and the lambs, and all that was good, and will not utterly destroy them. but everything that was vile and refused that they destroyed others.
You know what Saul did? Saul did the exact same thing people do today. They pick and choose what's best for them. If they like it and they want it, they'll pick and choose even to their own demise. The Bible says he spared that which was good and that which was best, but he threw away the stuff that was refuse and vile. People want to do the same thing in religion today. They want to pick and choose what they like, what makes them feel good, what makes them happy. But guess what? You got to hearken to God. What else does it say?
Then came the word of the Lord unto Samuel, saying.
Now notice now, God come back to Samuel, because you remember it was Samuel who gave him the commandment. Know what God says?
It repenteth me that I have set up Saul to be king.
For
he is turned back from following me.
God says it repented me. You remember that was said in Genesis chapter 6? Right before God destroyed the world? It repented me that I made man on the face of the earth. God is saying the same thing about Saul. God said, you know what, I should have made him king. It repented me that I have set Saul up. What else does it say?
And had not performed my commandments.
You see what Saul did? Saul transgressed. He hadn't performed my commandments. Then what else does it say?
And it grieved Samuel, and he tried
I want you to catch this.
all night.
Now, it repented God, but Samuel was the one who was crying. Samuel cried all night. You know why? Because Saul was his successor. And Samuel sees this joker not going to do right. And so Samuel cried all night. I want you to think about this. Samuel sees a guy's coming to take his place, who's not even going to listen to God. How is he going to be the king? Some of our parents and our grandparents, some of y'all crying right now because you got to leave your estate, your home, your fortune to some children who not going to do what's right.
Amen.
Samuel cried all night because he noticed who he got to leave it to. So Samuel was a righteous man, and he got to leave the kingdom, he got to leave God's people in the care of this joker. And so Samuel cried all night. But I want you to know what happened. What else does it say?
And when Samuel rose early to meet Saul in the morning, it was told Samuel, saying, Saul cometh to Carmel, and behold, he set him up a place, and is gone about, and passed on, and gone down to Gilgal.
I want you to notice how Saul approaches Samuel. Notice the next verse.
And Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said unto him, Blessed
So
thou
then Samuel
be the
come to
Lord.
Saul, and as my mother used to say sometimes, Saul all skinning and grinning. He smiling from ear to ear. He talking about, you know what, blessed be the Lord, I have performed the commandments of the Lord. And Samuel said, what are you talking about, man? If you had did what God told you, if you had hearkened to God like he said, why do I hear these sheep and this oxen? And what these folks still doing alive over here if you don't did what God told you to do?
Amen.
And so that thing, it grieves Samuel. But I want you to know, when you drop down to verse number 22, notice how God likens Saul's disobedience.
And Samuel said, Has the Lord as the life in one offering?
You think God really pleased at the fact that you kept them lambs and them rams and you going to offer them for sacrifice? You really think God is happy when you fail to obey him? You see, here's the thing. If you don't do everything God tells you to do, you haven't done anything. What else does it say?
As in obeying the voice of the Lord, behold, to obey is better than sacrifice.
To obey is better than the sacrifice, but notice this next phrase.
And to hearken.
To hearken. And that was verse number 1. God told him, hearken. Listen. Pay attention. Do what I tell you to do. And so many times the reason why we end up sinning or transgressing against God is because we don't listen.
Amen.
We don't hearken. We don't pay attention. You think about it. Here's Saul. God is getting ready to make Saul king over his people. And he can't even do the very smallest or minutest of commandments that God wants him to do.
Right.
See, Saul's problem was this. Saul, when he realized he was going to be the king, Saul got too big for his britches. And he thought he didn't have to listen to God. And that's what's going on in the world today. You see, men, again, they get beside themselves. They get too big for their britches. They think they can do whatever they want in religion. They think they can treat people any kind of way. But don't get too big where you feel like you don't have to obey God. And that's exactly what happened with Saul. And you know what God said? Because Saul did this, God told Samuel, you know what? It repented me that I have made Saul king, and I have rejected him. Look at the next verse.
For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness as of iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the words of the Lord, he has also rejected thee from being king.
God says, because he rejected me, I'm going to reject him. So here's the point of it all. Don't go through life thinking you can just keep turning your nose up at God, keep throwing your hand up at God, keep rejecting God. And God said, because he rejected me, I'm going to reject him. Yeah. You see, when man fails to believe God and man fails to obey God, God turned his back on him.
Amen, brother.
Just go through the book of Romans chapter 1, and notice how many times God said he gave up on people. He gave up on them because they gave up on him. So when man rejects God, when man rejects the counsel of God, when man rejects the gospel, guess what? God will reject him. That's why Jesus says in John chapter 12, he that rejected me and receiving not my word have one that judge him. The word that I have spoken to him shall judge him in the same day, in the last day, John 12:48. So don't reject God. You end up rejecting God, he end up costing you in eternity. Amen. But that's transgression. Transgression is rebellion. Note what he says in verse 22 again. Verse 23, for rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. So when you think about Saul, don't think about a regal or a royal monarch. Think about a rebel.
All right, right.
Saul was a rebel. He rebelled against the commandments of God. That's sin. And so when man decides he's going to defy God and he's going to rebel against God, that's sin. Not only that, but notice the word iniquity. Notice iniquity. Look at Job chapter 4 and verse number 8. Iniquity is likened sometimes to depravity, perversity, and wickedness. Job chapter 4 and verse number 8. Job understood a long, long time ago what we just not realized. Job 4 and verse number 8.
Even as I have seen.
Job said, I've seen this.
They that plies iniquity.
If you plow iniquity.
And sow wickedness.
You sow wickedness, it's the same word. You're going to reap the same. If you plow iniquity and you sow wickedness, you're going to reap the same. What goes up got to come down. What you sow, you shall reap. Paul says in Galatians chapter 6 the same thing. For whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. Don't think you can just go around doing any and everything. You're not going to reap the same. My uncle, he don't go to anybody's church, but he sometimes he speaks words of wisdom. And my uncle said one time something happened to him bad, and he said, "Man, you know sometimes when you treat people wrong, man, it's like that thing just be waiting around the corner for you." I don't know what he was talking about, but I felt like he was talking about you reap what you sow. Amen. And so whatever you reap, however you treat people, what you say, what you do, don't be surprised when it comes back your way. You see, God always knew there was a boomerang effect with sin. And so whatever you reap, that shall you sow. So if you reap iniquity and you sow wickedness, guess what? Job said a long time ago, you're not going to reap anything different. You reap the same. The same thing that which you sow. Now, if that don't cause you to stop in your tracks, however you treat people, and that same thing gonna come back to you, and guess what? You don't know the day or time when it's coming back. Amen. And most of the time, it come back at the most inconvenient, most inopportune time. Right. But he said it's coming back. Right. You'll reap the same. And so we need to realize iniquity. If you sow iniquity and you sow wickedness, you'll get the same. But look at Isaiah chapter 1, because I want us to consider this word iniquity. You see, iniquity is the idea of wickedness. What God wants man to do when it comes down to his commandments. The word iniquity also means a deviation from to the right or to the left. God wants man to go straight. But notice what he says in Isaiah chapter 1 and verse number 10.
Hear the words of the Lord, ye rulers of Solomon. Give ears unto the law of our God, ye peoples of Gomorrah. To what purpose is the multitude of you? Now understand this. When Isaiah writes this, Sodom and Gomorrah has been destroyed. So this is figurative language. What God is doing through Isaiah, God is calling his own people Sodom and Gomorrah. All right. That's how bad his people were. Because Sodom and Gomorrah has been destroyed a long, long time ago. So God tells the rulers of Judah, God says he calls them Sodom and Gomorrah. That's how wicked his people had become.
And just to show you how wicked they become, read on.
Sacrifice unto me, says the Lord. I am full of burnt offerings.
God said, I don't want your burnt offerings.
Of rain.
I don't want your sacrifice.
And a fat of fed beef. And I delight not in the blood of bullocks.
God said, I don't want none of that stuff. I want you to stop for just a moment. Who asked for that stuff? Who told them to offer bulls and animals and rams and lambs? God did. That's Exodus chapter 25. God was the one who told them to bring these animals for their various sacrifices and their various feast days. But now, centuries later, when their worship has become so contaminated and so polluted and so diluted, God says, I don't want that stuff. Lord, what does he say?
When you come to appear before me, who have required this at your hand to tread your course, bring no more vain obligation and incense and abomination unto me.
Why, God?
The new moon and the Sabbath day, the call of assembly, I cannot awaken with. It is iniquity, even the Solomon meeting.
God says, these people's lives have been so corrupted that when they come to worship, God calls their worship iniquity. What we have to understand as New Testament Christians, we say it, you hear it week in and week out. Don't live like the devil during the week and think worship gonna make up for it. It don't work like that. Don't live ungodly during the week, doing any and everything under the sun. Think you just gonna come in here, take the Lord's Supper, and worship that's supposed to just absorb you all the sin you've done during the week. It don't work like that. You could come here on Sunday morning just like you was Friday night or Saturday night. Some people are under the impression all they gotta do is make it to worship. And they're all right. Without any repentance, without any godly sorrow, without any remorse for what they've done. And so that's the same thing they were doing. They thought all they had to do is go and offer them animals, those lambs and those calves and those bulls, and God was going to be well pleased. God said, I don't want none of that stuff in your life ain't right. And so God calls their worship iniquity. Is it the case that God is looking at your worship and it is iniquity? So God said, I don't want it. Why? Because it is iniquity. You see, when we live, we're supposed to live in such a way that we draw attention to honor and glorify God. But we can't do that when we live just like the world. And so God says, don't bring the worship before me. It's amazing when you think about the word that is used here, the word iniquity. The idea means to go straight. You know what some people like to do? Instead of just walk out of this room and go outside, they want to walk in between every row, every seat, up and down this way, over here, and over there. No, that ain't how you're supposed to walk. A straight line. That's why you see in Deuteronomy 5:32 and Joshua 1:7, God told his people, don't deviate to the right hand or to the left hand. And here's the thing, let me just say this while I'm there. When it comes down to worship, when it comes to doctrine, even today in the Church of Christ, if you ain't doing everything the world is doing worship, people think, you know what, you dead. Y'all ain't praising God. Y'all ain't worshiping God. Look here. I don't care what nobody says. I'm always going to be safe rather than sorry later. Amen. And the last time I checked, when I came over here, I ain't seen no vultures outside. Amen. I didn't see no coroner outside when I pulled up. So just because we're not doing everything the world doing, you can say whatever you want. But guess what? We're going to stay on that straight and narrow path. Amen. Because God says don't deviate to the left or to the right. So why are you going to wade over here and wade over there trying to bring in stuff to boost our worship? And God said, you know what? That's iniquity. Amen. Amen. That's how we get the Church of Christ today. What people need to realize is worship ain't about us. Amen. It's never been about us. Amen. It's always about God. We'll always be about God. And anytime you tamper with that, it's iniquity. It's transgression. That's why Jesus said, we'll get to it later, Jesus says, ye workers of iniquity, I never knew you. What were you doing when you thought worship was about you? As a matter of fact, while I'm there, for those who didn't go to the youth conference last week, there was an incident that happened. If you didn't know what was going on, you thought it was just something that was a little hiccup. Last week in the youth conference in Chattanooga, there was a young man who got up to sing. Had a wonderful voice. Yes, he did. Wonderful voice. I mean, he could sing. Probably could make an album. He led one song. Then he got ready to lead the second song. And the elder stood up and did like this. Most of them would do like this. He sat down. Well, we didn't know the whole time that was happening. They had already told the young man he could not lead a song. So you know what he did? He took it upon himself just to walk up there anyway and to lead a song. And I'm glad that we had some elders who told him, who stood up, we're not going to do that. It's not about you. And so, just like Saul did, he disobeyed God. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians 14, let everything we do be done decently and in order. Now just imagine everybody in that auditorium, some motherfucker that want to get up and lead a song.
It's all right. It's all right.
But that's what's happening. Transgression and iniquity. God called their worship iniquity. God said, I don't want it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. So when you look on television and you see what's going on, and you see what's going on with our televangelists, with these denominational churches, and what's going on in Lord's House right now, that stuff, it don't move me. It don't bother me one bit, because you know why? Because I know when we do it right, and we worship God in spirit and in truth, and our heart is in it, and our lives are right, God will be well pleased. Amen. That's what God wants. God wants zeal to be there, enthusiasm to be there, but then your life got to be right in order to match up with it. Amen. These folk were living any and every kind of way, and then coming to worship as if God supposed to overlook that. If you don't believe me, look at Jeremiah chapter 7. Jeremiah chapter 7. Jeremiah chapter 7. Notice verse number 1. I know it's not on the board. Jeremiah chapter 7, just to show you how they were living, and then coming to worship. Jeremiah 7, start verse number 1.
The word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, stand in the gates of the Lord house, and proclaim there this word, and say, hear the words of the Lord.
Now God tells Jeremiah, go and stand in the gate. Stand right there where they're coming in at. Right there at the gate of the worship house. What else does it say?
Hear of the word of the Lord, all ye of Judah, that enter in at these gates.
First thing you need to understand, he's not talking to the world. He said, oh ye Judah. Jeremiah talking to God's people. So many times we go to the Bible and we want to make application to the world, to denominationalism. No, he's talking to his people. Because if we don't get it right, how do we expect for them to get it right? God is speaking to Judah, his people. What else does it say?
Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, amend your ways.
Amend your ways.
And your doings.
And your doings.
And I will cause you to dwell in this place.
God said, if you amend your ways and your doings, I'll bless you. I'll take care of you. Haven't you realized by now that blessings are tied directly to morale? What else does he say?
Turn ye not in lying words. Trust ye not in lying words.
God said don't trust in lying words. Well, what are the lying words, Jeremiah?
The temple of the Lord. The temple of the Lord. The temple.
That's what they were trusting in.
All these.
They were trusting